I'm an Irish people. Not unique to some Irish people in the EIS.
I mean, Larry said it. I thought they had the right to, but they should.
How you get on this morning? Ah, not bad. What do you think of the numbers so far?
Not too bad, to be honest. Scotland against Rangers. But there is an anti-match today, so that maybe takes some of the crowd.
Well, yeah, but different cities, different sides of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm finishing this stream on Indy Live and then head over to Edinburgh on the train, so I know. No rest for the wicked. Oh, my council, I think I've actually not told that on Indy Live yet. I don't want to. No, it's alright, don't be daft. It's one of those things, it's like trying to, like, you don't want to platform yourself, you know, and yeah, so I've got to put a wee post on my actual personal page to say content from this feed is now sponsored by AUOB Party. I don't have to do that for Independence Live, I just need to be mindful of what I say, but
No.
I didn't even bring a bottle, I just...
I've got a sandwich, you know.
So, I'm thinking it's usually these. Aye, and I think you'll probably find that people will join as they go through the city. So by the time you get through middle of Glasgow, there could be maybe 2,500.
Yeah.
That'll
do us.
Aye.
I'm sweating too.
I know, it's mental. A sunny day in Glasgow. Catch you soon. So we should be starting here in the next couple of minutes. Try and read out your comments as they appear, but given the current sun situation, I can't really see many things. Yeah, I can't see any comments at all, unfortunately, so I apologise, but very much joining in the stream. This is the March Against Racism in Glasgow. We're covering this event here and the Yes2 marching rally in Edinburgh as well. That starts at 1 o'clock. But we're out for a wee early morning start here in Glasgow first.
All speakers to the front, please.
Sorry. No, what were you taking? Oh, it's down there. That way. So no, that side. They may encroach onto that just
that's
for...
fine, but the main banner, that side.
I don't know. Get out there, don't worry.
Apologies for the internet connection issues. Just having some problems with my VPN service there, so should be a bit better now.
Everybody, we're just getting ready to start. You want to move forward?
An idea of the press today.
Everybody, we're getting ready to go. Stop people in the front and the bottom to move forward. Let's move forward. Let's move forward.
Refugees are welcome here. Civilian rule for Sudan! 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 Who are we? Who are we? Who are we?
Independence Live. Who is it? I don't know, it's me. Banter. I'm sure you go to a box, it's no your own normal crew.
Israel is killing Palestinian people every day. How is this being accepted? How can Zionists support us in apartheid today?
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free support Palestine! Also what all Jewish people are fucking Zionists. All we're saying is we support anti-Semitism.
Jewish people in their stall and this.
So do we. Yet you seem to think we're the enemy. So do you support Zionism then? Why are we the enemy? Do the socialist workers support Zionism? You're the one who's
Oh! Ben Gurion. They give my details to Ben Gurion. I got arrested 7 days in Gila.
Who's he? You're putting out a bonnet. Oh, him? Yeah, I know. Sorry, yeah. No, that's not, I don't know. Free Palestine! 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 Palestine! Sorry, are you saying that right, so you're saying on observations in March, we tell people to do counting.com. Do you think that is the spirit of observations event?
I'm not sure if I'm glad or not. I can't read the comments on that exchange. But we're off after a wee 20-minute delayed start. Hope everyone's well. Anyone that's tuning in live now, this is live in Glasgow at the Stand Up Against Racism March and Rally. I'll be your wee host, Ian, from here to George Square. then from George Square, hop on a train over to Edinburgh to be up with the Yes 2 crowd doing their march in Edinburgh, starting at 1 o'clock at the Castle Terrace. So if you are watching this now thinking, oh, I can be in Edinburgh as well in an hour and a half, 2 hours. How's the time? Get your walking boots on and get your saltires out and get over there. But yeah, as I said, we're covering both the events that are happening in both the cities today on Independence Live. So we thank you for your continued support. Best thing you can do while you're watching these streams is like, share and comment. I can always see Jacqueline's comment saying great day, enjoy. If you do want to leave a comment, please ping it on there. I shall read out as many as I can see or get involved in. So we're going to scoot down and try and get to the front of this. Margaret saying well done Scotland. I think it's quite a... I think us Scots have a wee trait for standing up for our civil liberties. Certainly we could do it better, like, but we'll get there. Tunes. Just can't stay around too much because of the copyright social media. That's why I've got them going through that. How you doing, man? Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Kevin. This is the kind of primary reason why we do all we do here at Independence Live, because we fully understand that, one, we don't have a proper media that's going to document it. Two, not everybody can get there. And three, it's free. What's better than free work?
Unemployment and inflation are caused by immigration. Commercial, the enemy is profit. Unemployment and inflation are not caused by immigration. Unemployment and inflation are not caused by immigration. Bullshit! Come open! The enemy is profit. Unemployment and inflation are not caused by immigration.
Yeah, 100% Kevin, and I think that's just why it was important that we had this event covered today on Independence Live. Because Independence Live, it's a bit bigger than just Scottish independence, it's telling Scotland's stories, representing the views of different people from different communities up and down the length and breadth of Scotland. As you can see, we've got the AUOB crowd out as well today.
Racist laws have got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho!
There should be realised that they actually knew yesterday and start all over that.
I remember when I was like, yeah, exactly.
A supposed march against racism. Absolute nonsense. We have to stand up against racism and stand up against Zionism. Because Zionism is racism.
6 foot. I was thinking 6'4". What are you? You might be 6'6" actually.
No, 6'3".
That's a bit. I might be the boots and the hat. Aye, actually. There's always at least one officer in the town bigger than there's on any one given day. I love having a bit of banter talk up. Oh, banter. that was pointing at me there.
Let NLC refugee. Those attorneys on the scene. Let NLC refugee. Let NLC refugee. Let NLC refugee. Let NLC refugee.
Sorry guys, cheers. Someone's seen my great shot of cider coffee. Yeah, Patricia, Edinburgh March is getting covered as well. So I'll be handing over to one of our other correspondents here in Glasgow, hopefully, who'll be covering the rally here. And I'll be scooting a train over to the capital. Possibly miss the very start, but should get them just about walking in front of the new British government building. All goes to plan, which it really does. How are you keeping today?
Good size, good day.
Aye! Aye, Friday March is always a good day. Gwen and Fiona, thank you Gary, covering Glasgow. There's that many of us correspondents at Indy Live, I forget who's doing what and what specific day. But yeah, keep an eye on the What's On guide and the website with all the details of up and coming content, shows, ways to get involved. Right into the bus. Everyone want that shot. Can you hear me wheezing away in the background?
welcome here.
Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud and say it clear. Refugees are welcome here.
Right, well, I've got to scoot onto a train and get myself over to Edinburgh for 1 o'clock, which here at the time is not very likely, but I'll get there for the start. Hope you've enjoyed today's coverage. As I said, there's going to be more coverage from Glasgow momentarily. They're picking up the stream just further down the hill here, but I'm trying to turn the camera around, sorry about this. Nobody wants to see my mug. There we go. Yeah, so I'll get a wee shot from up the top, but otherwise I've got another city to be in. Ideally I would hand over to another streamer before that I do finish up, but yeah, I am time constrained unfortunately today, so I apologise. I don't like to finish these things early, but this is just a wee pause till I get myself over to the other side of the country. I shall see you all soon. Cheerio, bye.
You can see the city centre is beautiful blue skies today. I suspect it is probably the best day of the year we've had so far.
Turn it
certainly if you're watching this, make sure you share the Independence Live feed so that people know what's going on. I'm not sure this will be particularly reported on mainstream media, so make sure this gets out to let people know that people do care, and that racism is no longer something that certainly the people who support Scottish independence and hopefully other people in Scotland will no longer tolerate. I mean, no one really knows where they come from, and does it actually matter? Who cares where people come from? I just walked beside the guy with the Ukrainian flag. An appalling situation. Where have you come from today? I'm filming Glasgow, yes, and I see you've got your Ukrainian flag.
Yeah.
Good. It's an appalling situation, isn't it?
He's a fascist dictator.
Well, it seems to be. It seems as if he's wanting to bring that back to a country that had a revolution against such things. But anyway, it's a good day for it, isn't it?
Nice day, aye, lovely.
I'm filming for Independence Live.
Is it? Aye.
Yes, But they've got quite a few cameras out today in the city, and they're also going to be filming the march in Edinburgh later as well. You see people of all ages and lots of people out today to show their support. I think the march will be a bit smaller than usual because a lot of people aren't ready to come back out to, you know, into the crowds because of COVID. But it's very well socially distanced as far as I can see, and that's a good thing because it's not away yet and people still need to take very good care of themselves. No matter what Boris tells us. Down a bit further, but you can see some of the banners that are here today. Because we're coming down into Nelson Mandela Place, which was a street in the city which was named for Nelson Mandela, who came here and was made welcome in the city, and that's something that I think Glasgow's very, very proud of. a man who stood up against racism and spent over 20 years in prison because of his beliefs, and ultimately was able to end one of the most racist regimes that we had in the latter part of the 20th century. The wonderful thing that also came about because people stood up and said we're not prepared to accept this. They put in sanctions against South Africa. People stood together. I think that's something to remember. That wasn't a huge achievement. People power deciding we're no longer willing to tolerate people in South Africa being treated like that. Here we are, Nelson Mandela Place. We're a bit closer to the side for those who've not been to Glasgow before. It's an amazingly prominent building and right in the city centre. We're just heading on to Buchanan Street now, which is the big shopping street in Glasgow. So we always come round this way with the independence marches. Sometimes we're greeted by some fine music in this very corner.
President Nelson, go to hell!
Take your racism!
Is Fiona filming for Independence Live? It's quite nice when the live streamers meet. Heading along now onto West George Street, which leads along to George Freedom Square. You see, it's a very busy day in Buchanan Street. George Square, Green Street Station on the left. I don't know the number of years this march, anti-racism march, has been going on for. Maybe someone in the comments, the chat knows, but it's been a number of years, and it's always on this particular Saturday that it happens.
Yeah.
And obviously all under one banner are here today because they want people to know that an independent Scotland would not tolerate and will not be part of a culture of racism, and that's something I think that everybody who supports independence would also agree with. And obviously for independent we've got more opportunity to be able to make those decisions for ourselves. So we don't have things like the hostile environment policy which the Tories have been putting in, which means that people who have lived here potentially all their lives are suddenly being told they're no longer citizens of this nation, and that's an absolutely despicable thing that Scotland can't do anything about. Well, we can speak out and we can do things like this, but governmentally we can't do much about it. So it's really important that we support events like this as independence campaigners, because Scotland is a nation of many different races and people who have come from all over the world to live here. And they've not only come here, they've also come here and been part of our society and progress our society. And I think any government which likes to try to make light of that is, or to try to encourage people to think differently, is very wrong.
Palestine! Free, free! 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 Palestine! 1, 2, 3, 4, occupation no more! 5, 6, 7, 8, Israel is a racist state! 1, 2, 3, 4, occupation no more! 5, 6, 7, 8, Israel is a racist state! 1, 2, 3, 4, occupation no more! 5, 6, 7, 8, Israel is a racist state! 1, 2, 3, 4, occupation no more! 5, 6, 7, 8, Israel is a racist state!
This is just coming into to Freedom Square, George Square. There's all stalls and various tents and things set up, and there's going to be some speeches. So what's your poster about?
It's about Tigray in Africa. The Ethiopian government is waging, with the help of a lot of other countries, is waging war on Tigray, and there's genocide, mass rape, and like so many other places, Yemen, Indian-administered Kashmir, Syria, it's a forgotten war, and the people, lovely young people, and war is going on all over the world, and you know, we have to. War is war, you know, and we see in Ukraine what war is, and we are faced with it every day. But this is what is happening everywhere. So that's why I'm here to support.
That's lovely, thank you. It's an Independence Live stream that's going out to hopefully quite a few people. Do you have a leaflet about it?
I do have a leaflet, yeah.
Is that your only leaflet?
No, lots more.
Because I'd like to read about it. I didn't know about it myself. Thank you. Independence Live.
When can I see it?
Well, it's on live right now.
Oh, I saw, okay.
But you can watch it back later on independencelive.net. Oh yeah. Well, we've got everybody in Scotland pretty much who supports independence. But we also have, which is quite a lot, obviously, at least half the population. And we've got people who watch who live abroad who are supporting Scottish independence. People who support anti-war protest, because we don't only just cover protests about independence, we also cover things to do with other ethical issues such as this today.
I think I spoke on it actually a while ago about oil and gas.
Yeah, you may well have, yes, because it's something that's very important. Any issues that are important to Scotland, basically, and obviously any wars are, and also to be reminded that Scotland hosts all the UK's nuclear weapons programme. We fought against it. We protested here. We did marches. People don't want it. Our MPs and MSPs voted against it, but we still have that foisted upon us. And I think that's a thing that people are really angry about in Scotland.
And the arms industry in general. BAE Systems is huge. And the Balearic bombs, you know, somebody has to go into work every day in the cold light of day and make these weapons and pass paper and get salaries for what they know is going to kill people in the most barbaric way in the future. The arms industry, you know, we have to look at it. When this thing in Ukraine is over, we're going to say, what can we do to stop war? Not there, but everywhere. The Tigrayan people are lovely people, and their food is phenomenal. And Ethiopia, a lot of the sites that give Ethiopia their name for being a site of fabulous heritage are in Tigray, and the Ethiopians, with the help of a lot of other countries, have said quite openly that they want to wipe them all out, and that's mass rape, torture, genocide, you name it.
And it's all about resources, isn't it? It's resources wars. At some point people have decided that components that make up the earth, you know, whether they're, you know, oil or gas or anything that are part of the world's whole ecosystem, are worth more than people's lives. And I think that's the thing that I think hopefully this next generation of people are waking up to realise that, look, whatever you've got isn't worth more than a person's life, you know. And they've tried to deaden us to it. Sorry, I'm giving it a rant now. I'm meant to be interviewing you and here I'm ranting. But actually, I think we've been deadened to that. I think we've decided at some point that that's okay, you know, as long as it's not us. Like the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard thing. Yeah.
But the Ukraine has shown us this is war, you know, and it's not only happening there, it's happening everywhere. So we have to, you know, try and look. The thing about Tigray, as in Indian-administered Kashmir and so many other places, there's a total communications boycott of all sorts. So nobody can get out the stories. You know, like we hear quite rightly of Ukraine, what people are going through, but we just don't know in these other conflicts. So it's very, very sad.
It is. But listen, thank you very much for being here and thank you for what you're doing.
Of course, witnessed the pride of racism, whereby white refugees are allowed to cross the border, but those who come from Asia and Africa are not. We say all refugees are welcome here. This and many more are the reasons why we are in stark opposition to the government's Nationality and Borders Bill, which will make it even more difficult for those who are fleeing to find refuge. Today we've got an absolute amazing lineup of speakers from all the way across the Scottish anti-racist movement. And I, along with my co-compare, Pina Ansku, is going to be introducing these speakers, everybody. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to our first speaker at this rally, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome her. This is Tabassum Niamat, who is a Kenmure Street resident and one of the organisers of the Festival of the Resistance. So, Tabassum.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at today's rally, marking United Nations Anti-Racism Day. You will be hearing from many speakers why this day and the events that unfolded in Kenmure Street last year are so important in highlighting why we march, why we protest, why during these civilised times we are still having to deal with uncivilised notions. What we are facing as a global community is a deliberately manufactured fear and blame of the other. We have more populist and right-wing governments in power than any other time in living memory. The Home Office continues to pander to racists and those who want to blame migrants and refugees for a crisis not of their making. When the Home Office introduced Clause 9 in the Nationality and Borders Bill, which could strip people like you and I from our citizenship, that was a stark reminder that for some, we are not British enough. Our Home Office believes our citizenship is a privilege, not our right. They are speaking the language of racists that scream, go back to your own country. So if this is what they think of us, imagine what they think of migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. What could it be about us that separates us from the civilised West? First you colonised our countries, then you plundered our wealth, then you bombed those countries and polluted those lands. Now you want to take a moral stand and say we love refugees, but only if they look like us. Now I'll tell you what solidarity looks like. Last May, as we were celebrating Eid, the Home Office sent an immigration van to a predominantly South Asian community to deport our neighbours on a day that was not just an important religious festival, but also the day our elected officials were being sworn in the Scottish Parliament. Such was their planning. As the police presence increased, so did we. Men, women, children, young and old, every colour, every creed. Everyone that could be there was there. We had lifelong activists standing next to people who have never protested a day in their lives. Last year, ordinary people came out in force to defy the Home Office and their hostile treatment of one of our own. We stood and we chanted, "These are our neighbours, let them go." Pollock Shields became the face of resistance, and to celebrate that monumental day, we want to say enough of this divisive rhetoric. We all belong. That day lives on in all of us. We're asking you to help us with our crowdfunding efforts, which is online next week. We're inviting you to join us, help us mark this day, not just by celebrating it as a victory for them, but an ongoing commitment to those two men and thousands like them who are constantly living in fear of when they will be next. Mark this day in your diary. May the 14th, Kenmure Street. The resistance lives on.
Thank you so much, Debassum. We first started marching to mark UN Anti-Racism Day, a stand-up to racism, in 2014. And today we are joined by people who will also be protesting in London and Cardiff and in many other cities. When we first began, two of the stalwart supporters of this, it's going to give me great pleasure to introduce them. The first one is going to be Amma Anwar. I need to say very little by way of introduction, other than just to say it is so extraordinarily amazing that the Shekubayo family are finally seeing some movement on their case. Amma will be followed by a representative of an organisation that again does so much in civic society to safeguard refugees. You give me my great pleasure to introduce, after Amma, Rabina Qureshi of Positive Action in Housing. So Amma first.
Thank you, Tala. I have a message to you from the family of Shekubayo. A 31-year-old father of two died in police custody on the streets of Kirkcaldy on the 3rd of May 2015. He was unarmed, he was CS sprayed, he was battened, and he was brought to the ground in less than 30 seconds. Up to 6 police officers restrained him, they shackled him, they handcuffed him, they ankle cuffed him, he was unable to breathe, and he lost his life. If you marched for Black Lives Matter, if you marched for George Floyd, then Sheku's family demand your solidarity. 7 years on, the family request on the 10th of May, when the public inquiry opens in Edinburgh, that you join the family outside in a vigil of remembrance. If you can't come, fill your social media with the name of Shekubayo. As Caddy Johnson said, it took 4 days of protests and demonstration to put police officers on trial in the United States for the killing of George Floyd. 7 years later, there is no justice for Shekubayo. Black Lives Matter is not just a hashtag for one day. The Bayo family want your solidarity. Ordinary people across Europe have reacted with compassion to the plight of Ukrainians, yet we have a racist Tory government that draws arbitrary lines between Syrians, Africans, Afghanis, Ukrainian refugees, that one day tells us that politics cannot mix with sport, that one day tells us we cannot fly Palestinian flags, and the next day these leaders drape themselves in blue and yellow. In 2015, Europe's leaders screamed about a migrant crisis against the 1.4 million refugees fleeing war in Syria. Yet the same countries have absorbed 2 million Ukrainians within days. No rubber dinghies, but free tickets on the Eurostars. What is the difference? Europe never had a migrant crisis. It had a racism crisis. 3-year-old Island Cardi was not the first child to drown needlessly on Europe's doorstep. Thousands of refugees are trapped in Ukraine, but there are also many island Kurds who continue to die in our water. Across Europe, there are 11 million empty homes. Fill them with the homeless, fill them with any refugee, whatever colour they are. If you want to root out racism, then dismantle that brutal regime of border fences, of detention centres and deportations. Deal with the killer cops who act with immunity. Deal with the racists who strip church of black school children. And nor should we absolve our own politicians, knee deep in the blood of thousands drowned by Europe's border controls, while Boris Johnson wines and dines Saudi crown princesses for for more arms sales and oil. We need to harness the spirit of Kenmure Street. Those moments when a community came together and said, these are our neighbours, let them go. That moment I still remember when I stepped into Priti Patel's deportation van and the door was open to 2 Indian men. And I said to them, you are free because of the people of Glasgow. That power of the people rests in every community, in every city, in every country to fight for freedom. That should give us hope. It should give us hope that one day our children will have a future where their lives are lived by the Stephen Lawrences, the Imran Khans, the Chris Donalds, the Simon San, the Iber Sheikhs, the Sheikh Ubayos, the Farzad Dags, and all the island Kurdies, that they will be commemorated for the lives that they lived rather than lost. Thank you.
Super, Amna. And just to let everybody know that the launch of the public inquiry into Sheikh Ubayo starts on the 10th of May, and it's going to be at Capitol House in Edinburgh Festival Square. Campaigners are asking anti-racists to be there. Our next speaker, I'm very delighted to welcome, is my colleague Khadija Mohammed, who is on the STUC's Black Workers Committee, and she is also a member of the same trade union as me, UCU. So, Khadija.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you. That's helpful. Just one correction there, Talat. I'm actually with the EIS as my trade union, as a teacher and a university lecturer. But good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Khadija, and I am the co-chair of the STUC Black Workers Committee. I co-chair with Diljit and Sarah, who I hope Sarah's somewhere in the audience, but I know Diljit couldn't be here. But we fundamentally, as a Black Workers Committee, have been challenging racism in workplaces. Over the last few years, previous chairs, like my colleague Leila Roxanne and Usman Ali, focused on the recruitment, the retention and the promotion of people of colour in the workplace through our Break the Race Ceiling campaign. As Amr have already stated, it's a time of heightened focus on racism and a recognition of the need to tackle deep-rooted and long-standing issues of inequality. The global response to the murder of George Floyd intensified that depth and strength faced by black workers, but we must always remember there is always many other George Floyds that we don't get to hear about. But we also must be mindful that many of our black colleagues suffer in their workplaces in silence, and we need to speak up. I fear that complacency sets in, the baton being dropped, opportunities not being seized. We must aim for sustained conversations that lead to real change. Before we even begin to think about recruitment to a diverse workforce, we always hear about that, don't we? We need to have a diverse workforce. What does that mean? Because what our colleagues are telling us is that they are still feeling isolated, they're feeling ignored, they feel that they're not being valued, and they are being disrespected at every turn. So, as a Black Worker Committee, we have two strong messages. One for our white leaders, and one for the very few black leaders that we have in Scotland. So, for our white public sector leaders, explore and acknowledge your own values, beliefs and attitudes, and how these implicitly or explicitly impact on your anti-racism leadership. Please stop confusing racism with simple racial abuse, racial taunts and slurs. It is not just that bad individual person, rather it is wider and much broader. It's an institutional problem in our workplaces. So, look in your own front yard. What's unfolding in front of your own very eyes? So, our message to those leaders is that it's not just about representation, it's beyond that. An ethnically diverse workforce brings cultural wealth. They bring cognitive diversity and perspectives to policies and practices. But I just want a last message for our white leaders. Racism exists in our workplaces, in our places of learning, in our local communities. Call it what it is and reject it in all its forms. Now, for our black leaders, and I'm saying this very carefully, for our black leaders, because we have a few, please don't pull up the ladder behind you. Extend your hand, lift as you rise. Refuse to assimilate into the majority culture. It's not easy, as you may fear the implications of standing out and speaking up. Black leaders cannot simply be grafted onto processes that are either approach to where they are coming from and what they bring, and to ignore who they are culturally, linguistically, religiously, is to absolutely deny them the right to be outstanding leaders and actually serve the communities that they are there for. Worse still, we then begin to look for perfect role models. We don't see them then. And so to finish, I guess everyone keeps asking, when do we return to some kind of normal after the pandemic? I guess we don't want normal, because normal means for our colleagues of colour that they will continue to internalise racism, they will continue to experience disadvantage in the workplace, and they will continue to be underrepresented, silenced, and face concrete race ceilings. Thank you.
Many thanks, Khadija. And now it's going to give me great pleasure to welcome Rabina Qureshi, who is from Positive Action in Housing. So, Rabina.
Good afternoon, everybody. 20 years ago, our charity set up Room for Refugees, a refugee hosting network, in response to the government failure to provide shelter to destitute refugees under their forced dispersal programme. A handful of volunteers took part in that programme and took people into their homes. We were told that we were fools and we shouldn't be taking refugees or asylum seekers into people's houses, and that we were creating risks. Today, and since then, we have provided shelter to over 4,000 refugees, 16,000 fully registered hosts, people who are offering space in their homes, and we've built an online platform capable of matching host families with people in need. Over 500 refugee organisations refer their most vulnerable asylum seekers, refugees, to our organisation. They include the British Red Cross, the Scottish Refugee Council, Freedom from Torture, but that's 500 organisations, and it was built up over 20 years. This refugee hosting network was pioneered in Scotland, and I have to say something. It really upsets me to see that even the Scottish Government has never celebrated the fact that Scotland pioneered Room for Refugees with 20,000 hosts. Has never. We're part of a worldwide movement that we're committed to building a modern-day underground railroad of dedicated people who are defying the indifference of governments to the global refugee crisis by lending a helping hand to men, women and children. So that programme has helped people through the destitution crisis for asylum seekers from Syria, from Afghanistan, from Iran, from Eritrea, from Yemen since 2002. We've helped people during the Park Inn tragedy in 2020, the Syrian refugee crisis in 2015, during the Afghan crisis in 2021, the Serco evictions in 2019, and now the Ukraine crisis. These are refugees. But we're concerned about the UK government's Homes for Ukraine sponsorship scheme. On an industrial scale, the UK government has gathered 156,000 signatures and expressions of interest and goodwill from members of the public. They've asked you to volunteer to provide homes in there. And only now the government has admitted that only a tiny fraction of those people will ever see a Ukrainian refugee. Not only that, instead of gathering people's signatures, they've ignored every refugee hosting network in the country. They haven't spoken to refugee organisations, and unfortunately, and I have to say it because you have to call it out, the Scottish Government is now on an industrial scale gathering signatures from people. It's got one step further in that they're saying they will connect you to refugees, but the expertise for that lies with charities. And we would not encourage you to go and give your names and your personal data to government organisations to host refugees, because there are networks already. And there's a pioneering network called Room for Refugees. And if you just go onto the website, you can register. And instead of collecting these signatures on an industrial scale, the government should be bringing in refugees on an industrial scale right now. Whatever their colour is, we have 200 Ukrainian families, some who are heavily pregnant women. They have left a war zone. These governments, these organisations should be bringing in refugees, whether they're Ukrainian, whether they're Afghan. And I hope that this programme is going to be in place for the Afghans, for the Syrians, for the people from Yemen, for the people from Iran, for every colour of person that needs to come here. Because the truth is, brothers and sisters, only a tiny fraction of the world's refugee population actually wants or needs to come to the UK. We're not all desperate to come here, and that's what we need to remember. But just remember, your data is being collected on an industrial scale when they need to bring refugees in now so that we can start assessing people, and that caseworkers across the country can start assessing people to be put into people's homes. We've had people turn around and say, I will only take a Ukrainian refugee, not any other nationality. We've had people who say, I will only take a Ukrainian orphan. So what do you want? Do you want their mother and father dead in order that you can take? This is not about you hosting. This is about people's lives depending on being able to get into this country and host refugees. So thank you very much. Just one last thing. Our organisation is funded by trusts and members of the public like you. Unfortunately, the Scottish Government has cut our funding like many other organisations, and it's wrong. We have been refused funding by the Scottish Government for homelessness, for refugee work and for refugee resettlement. And if we're going to talk about solidarity, then I call on the Scottish Refugee Council and every other refugee organisation to support the work we do. Our work is out there, you can see what we're doing, so please support us and write to your MSP.
A huge thanks to Rubina for covering the very important ongoing issues. My name is Pinar Aksu, campaigner and from Medical Integration Network. As it's been said, it's so amazing to see so many people here. And now it's the time for solidarity. We have a racist nationality and borders bill, which is now being discussed, and it's going to be discussed next week in the House of Commons. If this bill passes, it's going to criminalise people who are arriving by boats. It's going to criminalise them by putting them into jail up to 4 years. It's going to create an offshore detention centre where people are going to be sent somewhere else while their asylum process is going through. It's going to make life very difficult for everyone. And this bill is the most racist bill we have ever seen. And now it's the time, everyone in the square, please do write to your MPs and tell them that you oppose this racist anti-refugee bill, and that you say loud and that you say clear that refugees are welcome here. Now, I would like to introduce Rose Foyer, who is the S2UC General Secretary. A huge welcome to Rose.
Good afternoon, Glasgow. The STUC is proud to be here today to stand up to racism, and we are proud to stand alongside trade unionists, community activists, members of the STUC Black Workers Committee and veterans of the Battle of Kenmure Street, because we know that the anti-racist fight back starts in our workplaces and in our communities. And it's good to see Glasgow among the many cities around the world that are marking the UN Anti-Racism Day, because it's important that we recognise that Scotland isn't immune to racism, and Scottish workers are not immune to racism. And the climate of fear that's created by the Tory government and their allies as they try to split our class and get us to blame the most vulnerable and disadvantaged in our society for the economic inequalities that we know are created by the greed of the rich and the powerful. And today more than ever, we need to call out the Tory government for their continuing shameful treatment of refugees, regardless of which war zone they're fleeing from. And we have to make the arguments in our communities that our livelihoods, the livelihoods of working people, are not endangered by those who are victims of war, forced to take desperate measures to flee danger and protect themselves and their children. Because the enemies of ordinary working class people don't arrive in small boats fleeing persecution. They arrive in private jets, seeking to extract maximum profit and exploitation from working people. And we need to recognise as trade unionists too that we must do more to challenge racism within the workplace, because too many black, Asian and minority ethnic workers still face systematic and institutionalised racism. There are not enough senior roles in leadership positions in Scotland, and there is daily racial violence and harassment, and sadly that still includes police violence. And the pandemic has simply highlighted the structural inequalities that already existed. There is evidence showing higher death rates, there was less access to PPE, they were more likely to be in lower paid frontline roles, less likely to work from home, and there was more precarity and job insecurity across our BAME communities. So yes, trade unions need to do more, but we as a class need to do more too. We all have to unite and fight the inequalities that our economy has been built on. The racists want to fill us with hate and division, but we have to fill working people's hearts with hope, with unity, and with resolve to demand real change. Because as the ruling classes fear, when we the workers are united, we can never be defeated. And on that note, I would like to express solidarity with all of the P&O workers. The RMT members and the Nautilus members have been treated disgracefully by P&O. And I would ask every one of you that support workers' rights to come and join us down at Cairnryan next Wednesday, the 23rd. There are buses leaving from Glasgow. Check out the RMT website and the STUC website if you want to know more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ross. And it's amazing to see so many unions here. Last year, we held an event with the PCS union for the, for the campaign, which is going around at the moment, which is called Lift the Ban campaign. People who are in the asylum process and people who are seeking asylum are banned from working. In some cases, people can be in the system for up to 20 years. Imagine not being able to work, not being able to contribute to society, not being able to use your skills. Please do support the campaign called Lift the Ban. Everyone in the square and all the unions as well. Now, I don't think I need to do introduction, but I think I need to. So I'd like to say a warm welcome. I'd like to say a warm welcome to Sabir Zizai from the Scottish Refugee Council.
Thank you, Pinar. It's heartwarming to see so many people coming out. This sends a very strong message that the UK government's anti-refugee, racist bill is not in our name. We are a lot better than that here in Scotland. We say refugees are welcome here. As you stand here today, as we stand in this square, There are 105,000 people suffering in the UK's inhumane and cruel asylum system. As you stand here today, there are 30,000 people put in institutional accommodation. And as you stand here today, there are brave Afghan men and women who fled the violence in Afghanistan in August. They're still in institutional hotel accommodation. Those people need dignity. And if you have only started to begin that this government, the UK government, is being kind to refugees, think about those people. Our response to Ukraine is nothing else more than a smokescreen to hide the cruel approach, the inhumane asylum system. What we have done with Ukrainians is that we have shut the door on them and we've made it difficult for people to seek asylum. We're bound by the Refugee Convention. The Refugee Convention has not a criteria for someone to have a family member here to seek asylum or seek protection. The Refugee Convention does not say that you should have a host to come and seek protection in this country. The Refugee Convention does not say that you should put yourself on Facebook to find a host and a matching accommodation to seek protection. We are a lot better than that. I came to this country, I had no relatives, I had no host, I had no matching accommodation. And I'm proud of what this country has given me, and we should continue to offer that same warm welcome to people, no matter where they're coming from, whether they're fleeing Ukraine, whether they're fleeing Afghanistan, whether they're fleeing Syria. Friends and colleagues, war does not discriminate. Why should we discriminate? People are fleeing all wars, people are fleeing all conflicts. All they're looking for is to rebuild their lives. But also, as you stand here today, the UK government and the Home Secretary is ploughing on with her anti-refugee, racist and inhumane bill. What that bill will do is that it will criminalize people like me who arrived in the back of a lorry. It will criminalize a Ukrainian woman with 2 children trying to seek protection here. It will criminalize an Afghan woman fleeing the Taliban. It will criminalize a woman fleeing the Assad regime. That bill is not good for this country. It's not good for refugees. The only people that that bill is good for is the rich to get richer. It will allow people to set up accommodation centers, offshoring, and those are all for private companies. Those are not good for us. So we have a final chance this weekend. When you leave the square, don't finish off from this. Write to your MP. Tell your MP that when they turn up to the Commons on Tuesday, that they should think about Ukraine. They should think about Afghanistan. They should think about those images that bother us, that we see on our TV screens, and vote down the anti-refugee bill, because that is not in our name. That is a racist bill. We're a lot better than that. We need to think about this moment in time. We need to think about our history, and we need to think about the people of Ukraine, the people of Afghanistan, the people who are seeking asylum and protection here. This government is creating a class system in refugees. Let me tell you that there are thousands of Ukrainian farm workers. The Home Secretary's inhumane response to Ukrainians does not include people working with farmers. They've only been told to extend their visas. They too need humanitarian protection. We need to stand for them. They also miss their family. They also need to reach out in this moment in time to their family. So it's very, very important that you write to your MP and tell them that this bill is not in our name. Refugees do not need racism. Refugees need leadership. They need collaboration and they need solidarity. It takes all of us to work together, including Scottish Refugee Council, Positive Action in Housing. Each and every one of you to help refugees to rebuild their lives in safety and dignity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sabir. As Sabir mentioned, we need to send solidarity to everyone who's facing oppression, especially fleeing war and persecution. From Palestine to Afghanistan, from Syria to Eritrea, to Tigray, to Ethiopia, and to Sudan, and to Ukraine, to everywhere else. Now I would like to introduce Rakia Suleiman, who is from Unison Scotland Black Members Committee and the chairperson. To Rakia.
I said thank you. Thank you to all of you here today. Thank you for those who paved the way for us. Thank you for the humanity. It is the most useful thing that ever happened in my life anytime I see people coming together to fight and stand against racism. I want you to look at your right-hand side and see what you see. You see a human being. When you turn to your left, you see a human being. There is nothing like racism. We only have one human race on the planet. It's a man-made world. I want to let's wake them up. It's ignorant behavior. It's lack of intelligence. It's lack of ideology that they have. They've been built on their own mind to divide us. I can see people with a darker skin, with a pale skin, with a beautiful skin. We are all beautiful together. We are all one human being. Shame. Shame on those people who wake up in their own mind and they think they can divide us. They think they can make themselves feel better. No. We understand what they're trying to do to humanity. And we, the same human, will come and fight and chase them to their home. My Unison have a track record of fighting against racism. Racism is the most dangerous virus in the world. When you were born, no one told you how to treat other people different because of the color of their skin. It is a disgrace that people become so dumb, our leaders, and those who act in that form, go home and tell them shame on them. I want everybody to say, shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. You know why we have said them shame on them? We are stronger than ever. The government, the individual, the community who think because of people's color of skin, you're going to treat us differently. We will stand shoulder to shoulder and we will fight it every day until I stop breathing. I originally come from Nigeria. Where I grow and come from in Nigeria, we don't talk about the color of skin. My grandmother is as pale as Arab. You know what we talk about? We talk about your kindness, your compassion, your ability to love every human being. How do you go to your bed and sleep when you know you make other person different and treat other people differently just because of their skin color? Do you ever seen animals or cat or dogs all come in the same color? No. There's a reason why the nature makes us in different species, because it's beautiful. When I look at the variety of human beings in front of me, nobody is the same. We're all different. Therefore, we have the ability to make a change. We make a change in our own way we speak to other people. We make a change the way we treat our children and bring them up on how to behave and stop calling people names. We make a change and not be a bystander in the workplace and stop treating people because they have a blonde hair or they have a dark hair. Could you all be the same? How freaking would it be today if you come in here and everybody's like me? You'll be freaking out, isn't it? So, because we are all diverse, because we all look different, let's go and embrace the differences in your workplace, in your community, in anything you do. I am a proud woman. Why? Because nobody give me any definition that because I'm a dark skin color, I should feel lesser. Nobody tell me that the person that's a pale white skin should feel lesser. It's a man-made world. The word racism is not made by nature. It's a man-made word to divide us. We will not let anybody divide us. I say shame on you and thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Rukia. We are going to have some music very shortly, then we're going to have Hamza Yusuf who's going to be speaking. But before that, I would like to introduce Gordon Martin.
Thank you so much.
Who is the RMT Scotland organiser. A huge welcome to Gordon.
Well, good afternoon, Glasgow. And here we are, once again, opposing racism, fascism, exploitation, and all the other isms that capitalism bestows upon us in the workplace and in our communities. The real perpetrator against all of us here is bandit capitalism. And my members have just seen it this week, where they were unceremoniously thrown in the scrap heap by bandit capitalisms in conjunction, I'm absolutely certain, with the bandit Tories at Westminster. I've no doubt whatsoever it goes hand in glove, and it's all about exploitation. And it doesn't matter to them if you're white, black, or any other colour or nationality. So we really need unity across all races and sexes, genders, the lot. We need working class unity. And capitalism created racism to divide. It created fascism to take their profits to unbelievable levels. And that's the agenda that these people have in store for us as workers. Bandit capitalism equals racism equals exploitation. And only racism really is a virus. And the only cure for it, the only vaccine for it, is unity of the workers, unity of purpose, in the workplace, in the communities, all over the country, all over Europe, and all over the world. Anything else is barbarism. It's socialism or barbarism. And we see what the bandit capitalists are doing now to workers for these lands. So there's no point in us coming here and saying, this is terrible what's going on in Ukraine and all that, and it absolutely is. But what's going on in our country is terrible as well. People's lives have been torn upside down. So we need unity, and we need unity of purpose, and we need action. And Roz is right, the RMT will be running buses from Glasgow on Wednesday morning to Cairnryan. And that won't be the first and last. That'll be the first of many. As we block these bastards for sailing ships with a scab army on them. That's the game we're in. Let's blockade, let's boycott P&O. Unity is strength. Let's unite and fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Now we're going to listen to some music from Romani, Germania, who are going to be singing some music. So I would like to welcome the group onto the stage.
Hi everyone, we are very happy to be here today. We never been on things like this here. Yes, we came today as Roma people, that means Gypsy people, to represent Gypsy people as well for this protest. We stand up for everybody. Don't matter from where we are, who we are, black, white, we are one. So we just came to be together with you guys. And we are Roma Gypsy from Poland. We're based in Clydebank. Hope you're gonna like it. More loud. Jelem lungo le dromenza, malagilem baccale romenza. Jelem lungo le dromenza, malagilem baccale romenza. Ay romale, ay chavale, Gele mungo le domenza, magacile batta le romenza. Ai romale, ai chavale, ai romale, ai chavale. Sauroma daye, orom kelena daye, orom kelena daye, musica kerena. Sauroma daye daye, orom kelena daye, orom kelena daye, musica kerena. Hop, 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 hop. Lecherale, hoppa. Hey. Ha, 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 ha. De, de, de. Sauroma daye daye daye, orom kelena daye, orom kelena daye, musica kerena. Sauroma babo babo, orom kelena daye, orom kelena daye, musica kerena. Sauroma babo babo, sauroma otaye, sauroma babo babo. Hey, ederlezi, sauroma daye.
Hello, how are you?
Hop, 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 hop. Hey, hoppa. Sauroma daye. Thank you. Thank you very much. Everybody are welcome to Mono Cafe at 7 o'clock, our performance.
Well, wow, how do you follow that, hey? So don't let anybody ever say to you that the anti-racists don't enjoy culture. We certainly do. And that was brought to you courtesy of Love Music, Hate Racism here in Scotland. This demonstration has brought people from lots of different parts of Scotland. We have had coaches come here from Edinburgh, coaches from Perth and Dundee, from Aberdeen, and also to my left over here, we can see the banner of the anti-racist forces that have travelled all the way from Newcastle to be with us here today. Okay, it gives me great pleasure now to announce our next speaker, who is going to be Humza Yousaf, the SNP MSP for Glasgow Pollock, and also Cabinet Secretary for Health and Social Care. So Humza.
Are you want to dance? Behave yourself, behave yourself. Kia was dancing for the two of us at the front here. Before I start my remarks about anti-racism, let me associate myself with the remarks of every single speaker, particularly Gordon Martin, who stood here before me, and say, Gordon, you, the RMT, Nautilus, the workers that are there in P&O, your fight is our fight. Your fight is our fight. And the way that those workers have been treated is the most disgraceful example of not industrial relations, but a complete and utter decimation of those relations. So we stand with you, and your fight, as I say, is ours. In terms of why we are here today, I suspect, like all of you, when I turn on the news,
or when I read the newspapers, it's easy to become despondent. It's easy to go down into a spiral of despair. It's easy to be downhearted because of what we see day in and day out. But then I come here and I'm reminded that in the worst of times, we see the best of humanity. And you are the best of humanity. And this square represents the best of humanity. And this city represents the best of humanity. And when I think about this square, I think about decades ago when the British establishment was calling Nelson Mandela a terrorist. The people of this city went just a stone's throw from here to what was then St. George's Place, where the South African apartheid consulate was based. And they changed the name of the street. And it remains to this day a testament to that great man, Nelson Mandela. And it remains a testament to you and our forefathers and our foremothers who took on racism in that day. And when I get downhearted and when I feel despair, I remember when I stood here, when we were seeing pictures of Syrian refugees drowning, washing up their lifeless bodies on beaches, and the West, and I say that purposefully and on purpose, when they turned their back on those refugees, we stood here. I remember the day, and it was I was going to say pissing down with rain. Can I say that? Is that unparliamentary? It was raining, it was dreeking, it was absolutely drookit, and we stood here and we said to those refugees and all refugees, you are welcome here and this is your home. So I want to leave you with that message, that as difficult as times are, as downhearted as you can be, remember, it is in the darkest of nights that the lights shine the brightest, and you are those lights. And let me end by saying that racism and the institutional racism we see, it doesn't happen overnight. It is built up often by the establishment for years and decades. And I was sick to my stomach when I saw Michael Gove suggest that when it comes to refugees and immigration, that somehow the UK has been, in his words, a generous country. Go ask the Windrush generation if they feel that this country has been generous. Go ask those in Dungavel if they feel like this country has been generous. Go ask every person that has seen a go-home van whether this country is generous. And go ask anybody, but anybody, who has been a victim of the hostile environment, whether or not this country has been generous. And let me say, and I keep saying I'll finish, but I promise you I will finish. Let me end by giving a message to our Ukrainian friends. Whether you have been here for a day or for generations, let me just say that this country is your country, that we want you to feel welcome here, that your loss is our loss, your tears are our tears, your suffering is our suffering. And I am so proud of every single person in Scotland and right across the UK that has opened up their hearts and their homes to those refugees, because it is the right thing to do. But of course, does it not expose once again the institutional racism of the British government? Where are the homes for the Afghan refugees? Where's the £350 a month for the Syrian refugees? So let's say it loud, let's say it clear. Whether you're white, whether you're brown, whether you're black, whether you're Syrian, whether you're Afghan, whether you're Ukrainian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Jew, whether you're Christian or agnostic, you are welcome here, and Scotland is your home.
Many thanks, Hamza. I also just want to say a shout out to the many climate activists who are also here on the demonstration with us today, because of course we understand the connections between climate catastrophe and refugees and what is happening in terms of the world. And just to announce that next Friday there's going to be a global climate strike. It's going to be from 12 p.m. in Glasgow, but there will also be mobilisations for this in other parts of Scotland too. So please do support. Our next batch of speakers, I'm really pleased as a trade unionist to welcome them, because in the Stand Up to Racism movement, we really value the support of the trade unions. It's a great pleasure to us that we know that we have the support of all the major unions who are signed up to stand up to racism, because the importance of trade unions in the workplace and in our wider community to challenge racism is absolutely critical. So our next speaker is going to be from my own union. This time I've got it right. She is UCU Scotland President, and she also teaches at the same institution as me. Please welcome Lena Vanagren.
Hello everyone. All refugees are welcome here. I am so happy to be here today representing UCU Scotland, my union, and I am so excited to see so many people here today. Now, UCU, the University College Union Scotland, we represent 9,000 university workers, lecturers, tutors, librarians, administrators. And we stand here in solidarity with all the anti-racists and with all refugees, and we welcome you here. So, we know racism remains prevalent in workplaces. We know racism remains prevalent in education institutions. We know it remains prevalent in our governments. My union just now, UCU, is taking strike action across 11 different Scottish universities for 5 days, from 5 days on from next week. One of the issues we are taking strike action over is racism in higher education. There is currently a 17% pay gap for black workers. That is not acceptable. You are literally being paid less and employed on horrible contracts because of the color of your skin. Universities in the UK are institutionally, structurally racist, but we want to change that. Many academic workers are also on precarious contracts, 0-hour contracts, part-time contracts. 70% of all researchers in the UK are on some kind of insecure contract. And if you are black, Asian, or minority ethnic, you are more likely to be on this kind of precarious contracts. That is not acceptable. And that is why we are taking strike action. Woo! So, I know we are living through difficult times. We have fascist governments, racist governments across the UK, or across the Europe and beyond. I mean, I'm not. Yeah. We have a cost of living crisis. We have employers treating us absolutely horribly. So I know it's easy to get down. However, when I see that there are so many of us here today, and when I hear the commitment and the passion of my fellow speakers here today, and when I and my fellow colleagues, brothers, sisters, siblings, comrades across the trade union movement, when we take action against racism in our workplaces, I know that there is hope. So thank you very much. Refugees are welcome here.
Many thanks, Lena, and solidarity. Our next speaker is coming from the trade union here in Scotland, the EIS. EIS has been incredibly generous with its unstinting support for Stand Up to Racism throughout the years. So it gives me a great delight to welcome Andreen Bamford, who is EIS President-elect.
Thank you. Today I stand here to represent the teachers of Scotland, teachers and lecturers who are the members of the EIS. Today we stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters across the world against racism and supporting the right of asylum. As a wealthy nation, we have a duty to do all we can to ensure that we open our doors, our schools, our communities to those in need of safety. The IS welcomes migrant and refugee families into Scottish schools. We strongly reject anti-immigration rhetoric, and we support teachers to challenge the harmful myths that are related to immigration. We have recently reprinted and distributed our Welcome to Scotland immigration packs for refugee families, and are currently looking into have our packs translated into Ukrainian. But to be clear, we support the inclusion of all migrants and refugees, regardless of the colour of their skin. We celebrate diversity in our schools, but we know that black and minority ethnic colleagues, we know that black and minority ethnic colleagues bring invaluable wealth and knowledge and expertise to our schools, colleges and universities. But we know that the numbers of BME teachers is woefully low. And that terrible number is not reflected adequately in senior management positions. And this is something we are currently investigating. The racist barriers faced by our colleagues must be challenged. At our EIS Council last Friday, we passed a motion to call for solidarity with the teachers, students and the people of Ukraine. We express solidarity with Ukrainian teacher trade unions, and we call on international bodies to seek a peaceful settlement. But we also call on the British government to allow entry and provide support for refugees without restriction, documentation and visas. As a union, we have also urged the Scottish and UK governments to act to protect those most at risk in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, right now, girls are being denied an education. This is unjustifiable and morally repugnant. The EIS supports the work done by Education International to fight for the right of all young people to a safe education, and we support the Gender Equality Action Plan. Quality education is crucial for ensuring women have a competitive advantage in the global economy. Even in our own schools, we know that BAME girls and women can be at a worse disadvantage than their male counterparts. And we have a greater responsibility to show our sisters, to show support to our sisters and ensure they have equality in society and equality in the workplace. As teachers, we are fully convinced that promoting peace, inclusion and diversity in our classrooms is the key to creating a society where racism and oppression is a thing of the past. Thank you.
Many thanks, Andrew, for that. Our next speaker, I'm very pleased to welcome, is from the FBU in Scotland. Please give a warm welcome to Colin Brown.
Friends, I stand here as a firefighter, a trade unionist, an activist, at a time when global discourse lurches further to the right, when ethnofascism is mainstreamed by far-right online influencers and dog-whistle politicians who purposefully try to misappropriate and weaponise our language against our movement. When newspapers and media profit from creating division and fear, stoking and inciting racial tensions, victim blaming, while crying cancel culture at anyone who opposes their racist narrative. It is our movement that need to create a hostile environment for the trolls, the politicians and those who believe racist language, acts and policies have any place in our society. FBU members stand against the immoral and illegal invasion of Ukraine and the horrors this war continues to inflict. We stand in solidarity with the peoples of Ukraine, Yemen, Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine and every other country and nation destroyed by war, by occupation and political oppression. Conflicts and policies that create refugees, to be vilified, distracting from the cause of their plight, to be abandoned by a political class more interested in sinking migrant boats than preventing the desperate situations that cause people to flee their homes. The Fire Brigades Union have a long and proud history of fighting racism and fascism. We continue to fight for justice alongside the Grenfell survivors, following repeated acts of state negligence, inextricably linked with race and poverty, that left 72 dead, 57 of whom were from Black, Asian and other ethnic minority communities. I stand here in the face of all these ongoing atrocities with a mindset of hope, not fear. This global day of action comes less than a year after communities of this city came together in mass action to prevent the enforcement of racist immigration laws and the forced removal of their neighbours. Neighbours who chose to make Glasgow their home. A city that saw 100,000 march demand their voices are heard to tackle climate change, change that disproportionately affects the global south, largely caused by governments and corporations that value profit over life. A city that today sees thousands of us mobilised to demonstrate that racism and fascism will not divide us, that we are the majority and we are united. I stand here as a firefighter and I say, not in our fire service, not in our society, not on our watch. Solidarity.
Solidarity indeed, Colin. Okay, our next couple of speakers, in a way really epitomise the broad nature and the united nature of what Stand Up to Racism is. We really value the support of faith communities, and of course we understand when faith communities come under attack, the necessity to defend them. So our next speaker is from the Muslim Engagement and Development MEND here in Scotland. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Lindsay Taylor.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and thank you. We are delighted to be here standing shoulder to shoulder against hate, standing shoulder to shoulder against racism, and standing shoulder to shoulder against Islamophobia, because you see, when one community is under fire, we are all under a fire. And that's why we need to come together and work together to end racism and to end hate, because this world is thriving on hate. War is all around us, and Islamophobia and racism is growing. One of the many reasons that Islamophobia and racism and hatred is growing is the media rhetoric that is out there today. The media rhetoric that every time you open a paper there is a negative story about a Muslim, about a marginalised community, about our communities. This has to end. Our journalists have to see what is happening. They have to take stock. They have to listen, and they have to change. Our politicians, when the leader of our country down in Westminster, of this country and of all the countries in the UK, can turn around and call my people letterboxes because of the way that they dress, it is beyond anything to me, and all it does is it adds to the hate that is already out there. Our politicians have to take stock. They have to listen, and they have to see what is happening around the whole of the UK and what is happening here in Scotland. Because in Scotland we pride ourselves as being welcoming. But I can tell you as a Muslim woman, that is not always the case. I can tell you as a Muslim woman, as a Muslim leader and as a part of a community, that it is not always the case that we stand united. So today I ask you all to stand shoulder to shoulder against hate, to raise your voices. Because for too long I have been standing and speaking, as we all have, but for too long it has been a small minority. It needs to be the majority. We need to stand together as a majority against hate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, and particularly for being so timely in your contribution. It gives me great pleasure to welcome our next speaker, who is from the Scottish Council of Jewish Communities here in Scotland, Maurice Naftalin.
So, yeah,
I'm Maurice Naftalin. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Edinburgh Liberal Jewish Community, and I'm here to bring greetings from SCOJEC, the Scottish Council of Jewish Communities. I'd like to thank the organisers. I'd like to thank the organisers of this amazing demonstration of solidarity, and to thank you for turning out today to show your support. Thank you. So, Jewish communities are a diverse and argumentative lot. The old joke is 2 Jews, 3 opinions. But the one thing that we do agree on is the need to combat the rise of racism, of which anti-Semitism is an important part, but only a part. Jews know only too well where prejudice and racism lead. So we want to see it opposed everywhere, whoever is practicing it and whoever is the victim. In Scotland, we want to work in partnership with everyone who's committed to that aim. In the context of the question that's on everyone's mind here today, the war in Ukraine, Jews are especially concerned about refugee rights because we're conscious of our own history. The Jewish community has been particularly responsive to the need to find accommodation and support for refugees from this horrific war. The public response in Britain has been magnificent. What a contrast to the official response, which, confused and inadequate, shows how rooted in racism, the prejudice and hostility to foreigners has a home at the highest levels of government. For an outstanding symptom of this, you don't need to look any further than the Nationality and Borders Bill, referenced by many people already here today, which is full of restrictions to entry and ways to criminalise people for the routes that they find to enter Britain. Along with all of the other speakers today, I urge everyone to oppose this bill. Again, let me thank you all on behalf of the Jews of Scotland for your attendance today and for your attention. We're showing that acting together, we have the strength to defeat racism and prejudice as a force in Scottish society. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Now I would like to introduce Feiruz Qureshi, who is from Unite Scotland and a health worker. A huge welcome to Feiruz.
Hello everyone. It's such a good view through here. See everybody together, united. Racism, unfortunately, is a global problem. Muslims in China subjected to concentration camps. In Greece just recently put refugees back on a dinghy boat in the sea to only meet their fatal fate. Black people fleeing from Ukraine's war are prevented from escaping because they are not the right colour. Palestinians are thrown out of their homes and land. I can keep going with the list of injustices in the world, and the UK is not innocent. Well, racism is endemic. For decades, public services have been subjected to damaging cuts. In its 73 years history, the NHS, it has been built and sustained by hundreds of thousands of British and immigrant workers. Currently, 40% of NHS nurses and 25% of NHS doctors are migrant workers, and 15% of the total NHS workforce are non-British citizens. During the pandemic, hundreds of refugees with health and professional skills and qualifications were called as part of a scheme in order to sustain the NHS services, many of which work frontline tirelessly and risk their lives to save lives. They were happy to work and contribute to society despite the disproportionate effect of COVID-19 due to the overrepresentation of ethnic minorities in frontline and socio-economic disparity that they face. The anti-immigration bill, the National Borders Bill, will destroy their lives and damage the NHS. Clause 9 of the bill threatens people like myself and many of you here today to be stripped of their citizenship without even any warning. And this is evident and seen already in the Windrush scandal. Citizenship is a human right and not a privilege. The bill will also affect health workers on a personal and professional level, as Clause 11 of the bill proposes a two-tier system and differentiates between refugees and force health professionals to also differentiate between patients. Healthcare is a human right and not a privilege. This damaging bill will have a catastrophic impact on the NHS services, along with many other public services. By tackling racism together and anti-immigration policies, we make a fairer society for people of all backgrounds to thrive. We must fight for NHS and other institutions to provide an inclusive service which treats all staff and service users with respect, dignity and compassion. Thank you.
Thank you, Firas. As Firas mentioned, once again, we have many people who are skilled but at the moment are banned from working. Please do check out and support the Lift the Ban campaign so that people with skills are able to be part of a community and share their skills. We are also seeing some of our friends from the Ukraine community behind us who have joined George Square. So once again, sending solidarity as we stand here in unity. I'd like to now introduce Jane Peckham, who is from the NASUWT Teachers Union Deputy General Secretary.
Thank you. Delighted to be here and bring solidarity from almost 300,000 teachers and school leaders across the whole of the UK and beyond. Education is a key weapon in tackling racism and racist attitudes. Education reforms have taken a backward step on racial equality in schools, not only for our young people, but also for our black teachers. We have to support schools in fostering a culture of equality among the pupils they teach. This work should start in the classroom by ensuring that all children follow a curriculum which is inclusive, reflects the lived experiences of all our pupils, and provides them with an understanding of the history, culture and thinking of all societies and peoples. Decolonising the curriculum is key to these objectives, and the NASUWT is campaigning on this issue to provide advice to members and schools on how to decolonise the curriculum and benefit all of our young people. Racism is an everyday issue for many black workers, including in education. We should be holding employers' feet to the fire in challenging all forms of racism, as well as reminding them of their statutory duties to do so. We now face the cost of living crisis, which is a product of a system based on discrimination, inequality and injustice, creating an economy which is racist and sexist. The impact of the cost of living crisis is being felt by our members and by workers across the economy. We're working with the TUC, Welsh TUC, STUC and IGTU to highlight the impact on teachers and to demand urgent action from governments and administrations across the UK. Through our research, we know that our members, teachers, are cutting back on essential expenditure. 1 in 10 have had to take on a second job to make ends meet, and members report to us having to use food banks and seek other charitable assistance. Through our Better Deal campaign, we will be unapologetic about speaking out on these issues. Oh, sorry, got my page stuck. Sorry. But trade unions have to play a key role in fighting anti-racism. They are a force for change and key to tackling all of the issues that members face. There's a need for collective action to expose racism and the economic, social and environmental areas where this injustice is being perpetrated. We must lead by example and explore our own practices, as well as what governments and administrations are doing. Our black members have told us that they face racism in the workplace on a daily basis, which has got worse since the start of the pandemic. 2/3 say their employer has failed to address the specific and increased risks that black staff face from COVID. The vast majority of black members say that they have experienced verbal or non-verbal actions demeaning to their racial heritage and identity. But around half of them say they are not confident about reporting discrimination, racial bullying or harassment to their employer because they feel they will not be taken seriously or supported, or because they believe they would be victimised by their employer. Racism is not just an issue for our black members and our black colleagues to fight. We must all step up, build allyship and call out racism. Our General Secretary, Patrick Roach, is leading the TUC Anti-Racism Task Force and the trade union response to anti-racism. The task force has developed an action plan which provides all of us as unions with a set of actions to put in place to tackle racism. Our movement must continue to work to ensure that we speak up as the voice of all working people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jane. Now I'd like to introduce Claire Torrance, who's going to be doing an act of spoken words from Loud Music Hate Racism. So a huge welcome to Claire.
Privileged I am to be here today, to be supporting Stand Up to Racism, and just to introduce myself. I am Claire Torrance, Glasgow poet and trans poet, and I just want to share some of my poems with you today. My first poem that I'm going to do will be called 3 for a Girl. This story you'll hear could be one of a kind, but no matter how clear, it's like leading the blind. Down through a chamber I find when I'm dreaming, stuck in my mind, or a daze with no meaning, something I witnessed without any truth, as I sat by myself, all alone on the roof, listened to magpies chirping with joy. 3 for a girl, 4 for a boy, in black and white, or so they seem, but under the light I found feathers of green, a sign I had seen her, and given the choice, as bold as the magpies, raising their voice, with nothing between her, and no great divide, the grass became greener. On the other side, the magpies had joined, and one became 2, but this one had swooped down in bright shades of blue. The colours share secrets, but to the trained eye, one represents grass, one mimics the sky. Then as if by nature, they were a couple, flying together, revealing a purple, a gift when you worship the smallest of things, lifting your spirits, then spreading your wings. Each little magpie has stories to tell, and I know that deep down you have one as well. You're holding in something like traces of gold. Are you 7 for a magpie? Never to be told. Thank you. And my second poem is Trophy Day, and this one is a link to football. When he tackled again, I was left feeling weak, but to lose the last game and stay top of the league, it's a perfect conclusion. Opinions won't sink, just a simple illusion on how others think. They dive on the surface, then smile with pride. Did he do it on purpose, or was he trying to hide? Gazed through his soul as he tried to act proud, but he followed his goal just to blend with the crowd. I would play a pass through if he tried making space. He might find being true would reward him first place. With his fans in their seating, he took centre stage. When I found he was cheating, he turned a new page. He stood and declared he was wearing a mask, left feeling too scared to go through with the task. Kicked the ball out the way, and I tried to be friends, but he threw it in play, then ran back in defence. When the ref had revealed there was one vital minute, he barged from a midfield, determined to win it. Open goal, last man, no place to hide. I stood like the linesman to flag him offside. Now it wasn't my mission to draw the red card, for this crucial decision came down on him hard. Let the truth take its toll, for I wasn't forgetting. Your previous goal had came off the side netting. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much to Claire for sharing some of the amazing poems and for the powerful words. Just to also mention that there is Glasgow Love Music Hate Racism gig which is being organised tonight from 7 p.m. at the Mona Cafe, if you're interested to join. Just another 3 more announcements. On the 10th of May is going to be the launch of the public inquiry into Sheikh Bayo's death in police custody. It's going to be launched in the Capitol House, Edinburgh, and Festival Squares, and all campaigners, the campaigning family, Amar Anwar, and the campaign is asking all the anti-racists to be there as the public inquiry is launched for the death of Sheikh Bayo. Also to mention the 14th of May, which is going to be the Festival of Resistance in Kenmure Street, alongside on the 17th till the 26th of June, which is the Refugee Festival Scotland, taken across the country. Before I introduce the next speaker, just to say once again, please do today, when you go home or when you're here, email your MPs to let them know that you oppose the nationality and the borders bill, which is going to be debated this coming week in the House of Commons on Tuesday. And one of the great work that we have done in the past few years, Paul Sweeney has been a great support, especially with the right to work for people seeking asylum. And just last year in December, we have launched CPG, which is the cross-party group on migration, the first cross-party group on migration in the Scottish Parliament. So now I'd like to introduce Paul Sweeney, who is a Labour MSP for Glasgow region.
Thank you, Pinar, for the introduction, and solidarity with you all here today. A defiant act, because when you look around at the inequality and the oppression faced by so many people, it can often be overwhelming, it can be enraging. But the thing that I'm taking away from the speakers that went before me and everyone, the love and the solidarity here today, is that we can and we must fight back for rights, what is right and what needs to be done to create a just society. Tony Benn, the late great Tony Benn, said that a healthy, well-educated, equal and confident nation is harder to govern. So it suits those in power, it suits the Tories to keep people feeling that they have to be under the cosh. They are struggling to make ends meet. They are worried about their futures. And where do they look to blame their problems on? They are directed against the weakest in society. That is something that is all too tempting and all too cynical and useful for Conservatives to divide and rule people, working people across the world and across our country. But it's our duty, and what people have been saying today is strongly about solidarity with the trans community, solidarity with those from a BME community, LGBT community, every aspect of our lives. We are oppressed by those who own the wealth and force us to eke out a living that is barely survivable in many cases in our country and around the world. The violence of Putin's war machine is visited as much on the people of Aleppo in Syria as it has been on the people of Kharkiv and Kyiv. Yet the double standards, the hypocrisy, has been all too revealing in the last few weeks. The way in which the Nationality and Borders Bill has been designed in a racist manner to oppress those with a different colour of skin. Do you not think that they cry over their dead children, that they flee for their lives without thinking about whether it's going to make them wealthy or not? And we are not able to offer them the very basics of sanctuary and hospitality. It is a racist act. The politics and tactics of the government are racist. Whilst the Prime Minister offers full solidarity with the people of Ukraine, he was cavorting with the oligarchs that fund the war machine that is killing the very people that he supposedly stands in solidarity with in Ukraine. The hypocrisy is disgusting and sickening. And yet again, we see it play out. We must tell the truth. We here today have a duty to express that in the strongest possible terms. We have a duty to educate our fellow citizens patiently and with respect, and slowly but surely we can turn the tide against the wave of cynicism that fuels everything that is so obnoxious about this government. We must do everything in our communities at all levels. Whilst we must fight against the Tory government's Nationality and Borders Bill, there's stuff we can do in Glasgow. Of course, direct action, so inspirationally conducted last summer in the Kenmure Street siege to protect people in our community who are being ripped away disappeared into the detention apparatus of the Home Office. But also, when we see people in our midst having to survive on as little as £1 a day in Glasgow, young women with children having to survive on as little as £1 a day, often in distressing and terrible circumstances, housing that's barely fit for purpose, we can make a difference now to their lives in a way that will be appreciated forever. One practical project that I'm working on with Pinar and others in the Scottish Parliament is to extend the free concessionary travel scheme for buses to all asylum seekers and refugees. Do you know what? That would cost 0.1% of the Scottish Government's budget. It would actually just cost 1% of the free bus pass scheme, and right away you would put £5 a day into the hands of the neediest people in our country and in our city. There are things we can do now to help. We don't have to just despair about it. We can take practical action. So let us reflect on today what we can do in a city level, at a country level, and across the UK and internationally to turn the tide, the often overwhelming sense of injustice we see in our midst. We can do things to make it better. And if something's worth doing to change someone's life for the better, it is worth doing. So I stand in solidarity with you all, humbly ask you to work with us to do this, to make these progressive acts work and to happen. And slowly but surely we can turn the tide against such a cynical and appalling government. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Paul. Our next speaker is from a community that again has experienced an awful lot of scapegoating and misery that we know too well in terms of our gypsy and traveller communities who are brothers and sisters. So please give a very warm hand to Rahela Kapachi from Romano Lard.
Hello everyone. Devin Saste Hai Bachtale Sailumia, which means I wish you good health and good luck to everyone in my Romanesque language. My name is Rahela and I'm project coordinator at Romanolav. Romanolav is a grassroots charity organization based in Govan Hill. We work to challenge the racism, discrimination and disadvantage experienced by migrant Roma communities in Glasgow. Like everyone, we were horrified by the reports of the millions of people displaced by the war in Ukraine. We were angered, but not surprised, to learn that on the arrival to new countries, or even before they arrived, the refugees were not all being treated the same. Reports have flooded in of Roma, Black and other minority groups being racially abused and refused aid. Reports of Roma and other minorities being refused at borders, while white Ukrainians are led through. Reports of volunteers refusing to help Roma families. Reports of segregated facilities with minority refugees being given less food and supplies. You would think that people running for their lives, leaving everything behind, and running into uncertain future would be supported and helped, but no. The horrific racism and discrimination that is experienced by my brothers and sisters has again been laid bare to the world. We are yet again forced to ask the question, do Roma lives matter? When our brother Stanislav Tomas died in police custody last year after police officers kneeled on his neck, there was worldwide anger at his death, with Roma rising up all over the world to demand justice. But the racist narrative of him just being another drug-addicted Roma man who was responsible for his own death ultimately won. We Roma are proud, we are strong, and we will never give up until there is justice for our people. We will continue to fight for our Roma communities around the world until there is real change. Today, I am here to stand together with all the refugees from around the world. As a Roma woman and on behalf of my Roma community, we say no to war and say loudly, refugees are welcome here. And with your support and solidarity, we managed to raise over £7,000 for Ukrainian Roma that had made their way to Poland, Slovakia and Romania, and who the families of our young workers are directly supporting with every penny of it. We need to keep standing together and help our brothers and sisters who need us right now. We live in really difficult times, and this is the time where we need to unite and support each other. This is about our shared humanity. The Racist Nationality and Borders Bill wants to tear people from this country. We want to open our arms to them. Together, let's all say, refugees are welcome here. Say it loud, say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud, say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Say it loud, say it clear. Refugees are welcome here. Opera Roma! Thank you.
Excellent, Rahela. Thank you so much for that. As you will see here in the square, there are stalls for Stand Up to Racism dotted about. Please go up to the stalls, join us, become a member, become a supporter, and do take away lots of literature with you. Okay, we're moving towards our last round of speakers now. It gives me great delight to welcome two brilliant trade unionists who have been great supporters, and so have their unions, for Stand Up to Racism. The first one is Scott Hartills of CWU in Scotland.
Comrades, before I start my opening remarks, I'd just like to pass on solidarity for the RMT and the UCU in their fight moving forward. Comrades, it's great to be here on behalf of my union, the CWU. It's great that we, the anti-racist movement, are out to say that all refugees are welcome. The government seem to have some
received misconceptions as to who refugees are. The Tories want us to believe that refugees are here for our jobs, our benefits, our homes. What a load of nonsense. Last year in May, Glasgow showed what real collectivism, real solidarity is, and what we can do. To who refugees are. The Tories want us to believe that refugees are here for our jobs, our benefits, our homes. What a load of nonsense. Last year in May, Glasgow showed what real collectivism, real solidarity is, and what we can do.
any restrictions. This government has expressed everybody for Day anti-racism. We must fight back against all forms of racism, all forms of discrimination in our homes, in our schools, in our workplaces, in our communities, and in society as a whole. So thank you for listening. Thank you for taking part today. Solidarity.
Thank you so much, Liz. Our next speaker perhaps needs a little introduction from me. He's been a great campaigner here in Glasgow for the Afghan Human Rights Foundation, of which he is director. Please give a very warm welcome to Mohammed Asif.
Thank you, Talat. Thank you, brothers and sisters. It's a great day, wonderful day. Let me express, maybe one of the speakers said, thank you to Stand Up to Racism, STUC, the politician, the activists, the trade unions, for coming out today. Well, we, the Afghans, as an Afghan refugee, we can feel the pain of the Ukrainian. We know how it feels when you're bombed by the toughest or the biggest bombs on earth. We can feel your pain when your children are screaming and running for shelter. We can feel when the bombs are dropping and you have nowhere to go. And the biggest victims of any wars are the women and children, brothers and sisters. Let me remind you the hypocrisy of the Western world. No doubt that Putin is a war criminal, a mass murderer, but we have another war criminal in this country, a man called Tony Blair. Tony Blair, who invaded Iraq, an illegal war when 1 million of this country, the population of this city, were marching against the illegal war. And we told them it's an illegal war, but he, along with another war criminal, George W. Bush and NATO, went and killed 1 million Iraqis. The same war criminal invaded my country for the past 20 years, killing innocent women and children along the barbarian Taliban in the Islamic State, whatever you name it, killing my brothers and sisters in Syria, in Libya, in Yemen with British weapons. Brothers and sisters, in the past 2 weeks, Yemen is forgotten. Afghanistan is forgotten. That Yemenis are butchered with latest British weapons. Brothers and sisters, when we talk about refugees, look what America and Britain did to us. Look how they abandon us. Look, they even steal our money. You know, the richest country and the most powerful country on earth, and their President Biden seized our 8 billion, the money which belongs to Afghan, and giving it to the 9/11 victims. My praise and solidarities are always in this square we stood. We showed our solidarity with the victims of 9/11. But brothers and sisters, they were not killed by the Afghans. They were killed by their close friends, the Saudis and others. Why? We, the Afghan, have to pay for it. Brothers and sisters, when we talk about refugees in civilization, I, an Afghan here, called by many politicians and mainstream media that we are uncivilized because the color of our eyes and the color of my hair and my skin color is different from those of the Ukrainian. We want the Ukrainian refugees in this country. There shouldn't be any limit. But we also want the Syrian, the Afghans, the Iraqis, the Kurdish, the Ethiopian, the Eritrean, to be given the same privilege. So they don't drown in the Channel crossing. They don't drown in the Mediterranean. So brothers and sisters, this is one of the greatest days after 2 years of lockdown. But I remind you one more lockdown. The people of Palestine, for one last minute, please. The people of Palestine who are oppressed, who are killed, their land been stolen by a Zionist state of Israel. So they should be given the same attention as Ukraine, as Afghanistan, as Iraq, and many, many other countries. Keep the good fight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Okay, we have 2 more speakers left. First of all, I'd like to give a very warm welcome to Gary Kelly of TSSA He's the Scotland organiser for that union.
Thank you, Glasgow. Brothers and sisters, I do not know what it feels like. It really feels like to be discriminated against because of the colour of my skin. And I don't know what it feels like to be discriminated against in a systemic and structural way. I was born with a double privilege of being white and being a man. But I also have another privilege. I'm privileged to stand here in solidarity with everyone that is here today. All the people and all the different organisations that take a stand to fight against racism and to fight against fascism. I know that racism exists. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it with my eyes and I've heard it with my own ears. I am a trade union official and I have defended and represented people who have been discriminated against in their job. I've seen the closing the ranks of employers. What they do is they close ranks, cover up, and they protect the very worst of them to try and protect their liability and their legality. Some of you may have witnessed or been subjected to similar levels of racism, and I think it would be remiss to not mention some of the worst victims of racism, such as Sheku Bayo, Belly Mujinga, Child Q, and the victims of the Grenfell tragedy. The system has failed these people, and it will continue to fail these off. The system itself is broken. It's broken basically because it's built on a foundation of lies, and too many people are unwilling to look at the history and to look at the inconvenient truths. The city of Glasgow was once and proudly by some known as the second city of the British Empire, a union between Scotland and England whose shared endeavour was the exploitation of people and natural resources across the world, an empire that was built on British exceptionalism, white supremacy and the blood of others. Scotland has had its own share of issues with the Union, but anybody that doubts Scotland was a willing participant, take a look around, look at the building behind you. These buildings were built on the blood of slavery and the exploitation of others, and that's what the foundations of our society are built on. Look at the portraits in the National Gallery who are running an exhibition on decolonisation. The people, the wealthy merchants who traded, their pictures are hung up there. In the very streets which are named after those who immortalised the ideals of empire. So why is any of this relevant today? Well, they used to say that the sun never set in the British Empire. And it's no accident that Boris Johnson and the political establishment have promised a return to sunlit uplands. This is what they're harking back to, and they promised through the xenophobic and anti-immigration Brexit that they will deliver that. They're actively encouraging the growth of the far right and fascism across the UK by peddling white supremacy and stoking racist support for their anti-refugee Nationalities and Borders Bill, and to tear up the Human Rights Act and the parts that protect refugees in this country. The sad truth is that for the British establishment, racism is a feature, not a bug. A feature that will continue to influence wider society until we have a reckoning with how the establishment was built and how it will shape the present and our shared futures unless we change it. And we, as the people and as the organisations, have the power to change it because they don't have the power, we do. We need to take that into our workplaces, into our communities, and make that change every single day. We are here to show solidarity, to make our collective voice against racism and fascism heard in Scotland and across the UK, to show the UK government that we will not sit back and accept institutional racism, and to show the world that we are united as one people. No to racism, no to fascism, join a union, solidarity.
Thank you so much, Gary. And I'm really proud of the fact that on our banner, the National Stand Up to Racism banner here, which says no to racism, refugees welcome, we have the logos of all the principal trade unions in Scotland. It is a great credit to them and their solidarity with the anti-racist movement. Okay, our final speaker, before we have another music interlude, is going to be Ruby Hirsch, who's speaking on behalf of Stand Up to Racism.
Thank you so much, every single person that came out and marched today, that came and stood and took this square to show that we as anti-racists are the majority in Scotland. As we've seen war devastating Ukraine and refugees fleeing on a scale in Europe we've not seen since World War II, we say, as we say about all refugees, you are welcome here. We want to see refugees from Ukraine welcomed here with open arms, show compassion, shown empathy, shown human solidarity, and it's great to see the outpouring of support, the 70,000 people opening up their homes. But why do people have to open up their homes to refugees? Because the government has no systems in place for refugees, because other refugees in this country are treated in the most appalling ways. They are denied basic human rights. They are denied the right to work. They're kept in hotel detention or detention centres. So of course, it's good that Ukrainian refugees should have the right to work, and we have to say all refugees must have these rights. All refugees must be treated with respect and humanity. Why the double standards? Why are refugees from Afghanistan, from Syria, from Yemen being treated as less than human? Let's call it what it is, it's racism. And why do you think we're seeing that when our government claims to stand with Ukraine, and yet they say nothing when black and Asian people who are trying to flee are denied entry onto buses and trains, forced to walk, stopped at the borders? It's racism, because it's the exact same racism that we see in this country, the hostile environment, the way that black and Asian people suffered more under COVID in the pandemic, the way the police can strip search a 15-year-old girl in her school, and we've seen no justice. We've seen no justice for the victims of police brutality. And now the Nationality and Borders Bill says that they can strip our citizenship without even telling us, even if you were born in this country, just because your parents came from elsewhere. They're sending us a message that says you don't belong here, you're not safe, you don't really belong if you're not white. So it's good that the Scottish Parliament has opposed that horrible piece of racist legislation. We have to keep up the pressure to ensure that it's never implemented here. Racism is on the rise. They're going to ramp it up. They always do when they need to distract from their own failures over COVID, over the cuts, over lack of housing. They always use racism to deflect anger, to divide us and to weaken us. But we know that when communities come together in solidarity, when black, white, Asian, Muslim, Jewish, Roma, gay, straight, trans people all come together united, and we direct anger to the top of society, to those people whose system is killing refugees in the Channel, is flooding people's homes with climate change in the Pacific. But when we fight together, we can win, because Glasgow showed that, because Ken Muir Street showed that. At Ken Muir Street, we all stood together and we beat the Home Office. We showed the way. We need to keep doing that. We need to defy the Home Office again and again with direct action, with a mass movement on the streets. We need the anti-racist majority to keep turning out on the streets and fighting and turn the tide back against the hostile environment until we rip it up and make a whole world free from racism. Solidarity, everybody.
Thank you so much, Ruby, for ending what has been an extraordinary rally with such a wonderful array of speakers. As many speakers have already said, this demonstration is not just a one-day event that we do in terms of fighting racism. This is in the step of many steps on a diary in terms of how we're going to challenge and be active in terms of challenging racism. So I just want to reiterate some announcements. Firstly, if you've enjoyed this afternoon, and it's a beautiful sunny afternoon in Glasgow, I'm sure you will all want to let your hair down further and socialise and dance your socks off this evening. There is a Love Music Hate Racism gig, which has been organised for United Nations Anti-Racism Day. It's in the Mono Cafe Bar from 7 p.m.
There is a Love Music Hate Racism stall here where people can get more information, but performers include the singer-songwriter Ant Thomas, Colonel John Thomas McMustard, the Daddy Bellies, and the Polish Roma family group Romane Sieherenia, if I've said that correctly. Tickets will be available on the door for that. On the 10th of May, as many of you have already heard, is the launch of the public inquiry into Sheku Bayo's death in police custody. That begins at Capitol House in Edinburgh. Please do everything in your power to be there and build that protest outside. On the 14th of May, we have the Festival of Resistance in Kenmure for the Kenmure Street anniversary. In Kenmure Street, Maxwell Square Park, and the Quad, which will be occupied with performances, stalls, and other community engagement activities on the 14th of May. Then in June, we will see the Refugee Festival Scotland, which takes place every year in the run-up to World Refugee Day, which is on the 20th of June. The festival here will be taking place between the 17th and 26th of June. And not least but not least, in August, we will have the Govan Hill International Festival and Carnival, which is a tremendous tribute to the anti-racist movement here in Scotland, that we have been able to organise and mobilise that on an annual basis. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We are going to end today with another musical accompaniment, and I'm very pleased to be able to hand over to Adnan Shamadine, who is going to be playing for us some Syrian, Turkish and Kurdish music, which is very fitting for an anti-racist festival. So please enjoy that, everyone. Stay safe, stay well, and keep building anti-racism as a united mass movement. Thank you.
I mean, you'll be yeah. Hello. Hi there, how are you doing? Just want to say thanks for everyone who was support a refugee. I was a refugee as well, and I still a refugee for many countries. So it's we are really pleased to see some people support us. So I will try to sing in something like for dance, only for dance, because I believe sometimes if we want to forget something, if we want to defend our friend, we have to be happy. Just to tell the older people, you can't broken us.